What is up, beautiful people? Welcome to another episode of The Coach's Quarters. I am your host, Jacob Meadows. And before we jump into the show today, I have a couple of highlights for the show. One, I have finally done my due diligence and gone through and linked all of my social media accounts. I got access to every major listening platform that exists that I could think of. We are officially on iTunes. We were on Google Podcasts. We are on Spotify. We are on Pandora. We are on any of the major listening distribution sites. I am officially on YouTube with all of my shows uploaded at The Coach's Quarters. I am on Twitter at Mr. Showtime Picks, or you can type in The Coach's Quarters. I have my Instagram at _coaches_quarters, or if you would like to follow my card PC and my jersey collection that I have in my studio and whatnot, just a little side hobby that I have, you are welcome to follow me at the Coach's Quarters PC. That little side note, we finally went through and we fleshed out all the social medias. We finally fleshed out all of the distribution sites, got accepted to everything major. So virtually anywhere where you can go to listen to podcasts or music or anything like that, you can tune in, you can follow me, you can listen to all the content that I put out there. One more really cool thing before I really kick the content of this show off, which this show will be mildly short compared to the last show, and definitely short compared to the next show. But my co-host and I, Joey McGinnis, will be live from the Stadium Hotel in Miami, Florida this weekend. That'll be our next show. We are looking at breaking down the standings, breaking down the playoff seedings, and kind of breaking down where we think the draft order is going to go when the season is over. We have 4 games left in this season, so everything's almost set. It's the nitty-gritty final stuff here at the end, but we're going to go ahead and put out a State of the NFL show, so that you can get an idea of where we think this season's going to end, whom we think is going to take the crown in the playoffs, whom we think will be, the most hinge point team at the beginning of the draft all the way to the end, kind of where the dominoes are going to end up falling. So we are incredibly excited to that. Shout out to the Stadium Hotel for letting us come and stay there so that we can do our show and then go to the game, the Dolphins versus Jets game on Sunday. Super stoked for that. That's going to be a good time. I can't say too much more about that because I'm going to talk about the Dolphins here in a little bit. So with that being said, we are going to jump right in. This week, it's going to be a little bit less of the fun show that I've been doing. I'm going to do more of a couple more game breakdowns. There's a couple of games that really stood out and for one reason or another this week. So we're going to start with the Texans versus the Jets. Less than stellar game, right? The wind was blowing 100 miles an hour. It was pouring down rain for 98% of the game. Zach Wilson looked like Aaron Rodgers. And the Texans just didn't get it done. It looked like we were really confused on defense for most of the game. We looked like we didn't really have our heads screwed on tight for the majority of the game on both sides of the ball. We did lose C.J. Stroud to a concussion. We are waiting to see how long he's going to be held out. And from a personal perspective, if this is a bad concussion, because there are 2 kinds that you can get. You can get a mild concussion or you can get a severe concussion. And the mild concussion, you can come back 1, 2, 3 weeks. But if it's more along the lines of the severe concussion, it would behoove the Houston Texans to shut him down for the rest of the year, start Davis Mills, and give us a full refresh for next season. As much as myself or any other Houston Texans fans want to see Houston make a run in the playoffs, this is the first year of DeMeco Ryans. This is Stroud's rookie year. Nobody expected us to be where we are yet. So this season is a success. No matter what happens, this is a successful season for the Houston Texans. And if it comes down to CJ Stroud's health, we would be much better off if we just terminated him for the rest of the season, let him get healthy, let him go back to preparing for next year, and we can come back in full force after that. Shout out to the Jets. What a dub over Houston. They looked amazing all game. Like I said, Zach Wilson looked terrific. The dude was throwing dimes all over the field. Breece Hall was running hard. Garrett Wilson was getting open. They looked really good. And honestly, if the Jets would have looked like that all season, we would have a chance to possibly see Aaron Rodgers come off of the IR, which he already is, but come back onto the field, play, because the games would be more meaningful. It's unfortunate the Jets offense didn't mirror this game all season, but props to them for an amazing game and what was awful weather. And yeah, it sucked to see the Texans take that L. There is still a path to the playoffs for Houston, courtesy of the Colts and the Jaguars, both losing this week. So the AFC South is a little bit in a stalemate at the moment. Moving on to the next pivotal game that I have circled on my calendar, we have the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears. The Lions get blown out by the Bears. The Lions take a step back in their division, which, they're still, 2-3 games up in the division, so it's not that big of a deal. But the Lions are reeling. Jared Goff looks like the Jared Goff that Sean McVay traded off the team. The run game looks pretty good, but we're not getting a whole lot out of our receivers. I do think that's 90% of the offensive line. For some reason, the Lions offensive line has regressed as the season has gone on. But it doesn't help that even when Jared Goff has good protection, he's not making good passes. It's either an overthrow or an underthrow, or it's behind the receiver. He's not putting his people in a position to succeed. And because of all of that, the Lions really have taken a step back. It's worth noting that their defense has not looked good. It doesn't look like they can contain much. They're struggling with the run game. They're struggling with the pass game. And it's been a sloppy couple of weeks for the Detroit Lions. On the flip side of that, the Bears look phenomenal. It looks like the Bears may lock up 2 top 5 first-round picks in this upcoming draft, and they're still not eliminated for playoffs. Justin Fields is hot. He's playing like everybody thought, or not everybody, but what a lot of people thought he would play like all season long. And the Bears are on fire right now. Look out for them to possibly bust some seasons because the Bears look good. Matt Eberflus has talked his way out of the immediate coach firing squad. And, there's potential that Eberflus ends up being kept after so many people were calling for his head the first half of the season. The Bears just look good. Everything they're doing right now looks good. Montez Sweat looks good. Their run game looks good. Justin Fields is throwing dimes. DJ Moore needs help, but if they can use a high draft pick on Marvin Harrison Jr. or Nabers out of LSU, the Bears could be a legitimate contender next season. And it's good for football. It's been really fun to watch. Justin Fields is almost as exciting to watch as Lamar Jackson is. So it's been awesome watching the Bears kind of turn this around. I myself was a Justin Fields believer at the beginning of the year. Drafted him in 2 of my 3 fantasy leagues. Got burned for weeks and weeks and weeks. And now he's playing really well. So love to see it. And, go Bears. Moving forward, the Bills and the Chiefs, the most controversial game of the week, quote unquote. You have the Bills beating the Chiefs 20-17. The Chiefs losing on a wild ladder play at the very end of the game. That was called back eventually due to Kadarius Toney being 97 yards offline. There's been a lot of contention whether or not that play should have been called. Basically, every sports podcast has already talked about it. And for what it's worth, this was one of the only late game penalties that I've seen that the officials actually got right. Kadarius Toney was over the line of scrimmage. Kadarius Toney, if you watch the video, never looks to the ref, never checks to see if he's offsides, literally lines up and jets. And quite frankly, do I think that it should have been a dead play and they just never let that play go? Like kill the whole down, right? Loss it down. It's a dead play. Move forward. Yeah, probably. I don't think they should have allowed the play to actually go on, but they did. And it was called back. And as much as Patrick Mahomes threw a giant tantrum on the sideline, and then in the quarterback meeting with Josh Allen after the game, and then again after the post-game presser, the refs actually got this one right. So no matter how you feel about the game, the Bills did win. Admittedly, there was a play where Von Miller was clearly over the line of scrimmage on the very next drive after the latter play that failed. That was not called. It's bad optics, but the refs are people too. The play that got blown dead or that should have got blown dead, the refs got it right. So the Bills end up beating the Chiefs. The Chiefs no longer look inhuman. It's looking like the Chiefs might be a one and done in the playoffs. The Broncos are only one game back in the division. Chiefs might lose that first seed in the division. So it's all really coming around. The Bills are getting hot again somehow because of Miami's loss that we'll talk about here in a couple of minutes. The Bills have a legitimate path to taking the division despite being so far back all year. This was a wild game with wild ramifications for the postseason. Moving forward, we have the Browns versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like previously stated when I was talking about Houston, the Jaguars lost to the Browns. They lost 31-27. The Jaguars are slipping when you're talking about the top of the AFC South. It's looking a lot like the Colts or the Texans could come in and take that first seed of the AFC South. If Stroud is out for any extended period of time with the concussion, I do not believe that it'll be Houston. I'd love to see Davis Mills come in with the players that we have and win a bunch of games. That would be just super dope. Do I think that that is possible? Yes. Do I think that is probable? No. I do think that Gardner Minshew and the Colts end up taking it if the Jaguars slip any further. The Browns, however, look legit again. They may have lost Deshaun Watson for the season. They may have cut PJ Walker. They may not be able to trust Dorian Thompson-Robinson, but a 38-year-old Joe Flacco is a stud. Dude still has all the arm talent in the world. He's still a very cerebral quarterback, knows how to get the ball downfield. The Browns looked very, very good under Joe Flacco in this game with an extra week of practice under his belt. Jerome Ford's running the ball really well. Amari Cooper came back from concussion protocol, had a great game. Elijah Mitchell looked good. David Njoku was on fire it was either over 100 yards or right under 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Browns look fantastic. Look at them to be a juggernaut if Joe Flacco can stay healthy and stay consistent with what he's putting out right now. The Browns are going to win their division, or the Browns are not going to win their division, but they are going to compete mightily for that first place in their division with Baltimore. If Baltimore were to slip any extra games, the Browns could possibly make that leap. Otherwise, the Browns should pretty easily take a wild card slot and be the hardest wild card team to beat in the wild card. Again, the Jaguars are still on top of the AFC South at 8-5, with the other two teams that matter being 7-6. The Titans are 5-8, so they are a little further behind than everybody else. Probably not going to make that push for playoffs. It would be a much harder thing to do for the Titans to do. But look at the AFC South to be one of the more competitive games at the end of the season, especially with Houston and Indianapolis playing in Week 18. The next game on my list is going to be the Eagles versus the Cowboys. The Eagles get blown out for the second week in a row, this time 33-13 to the Dallas Cowboys. They also lost first place in their division. Both teams are 10-3, but the Cowboys are officially the number one team in the NFC East, which is spectacular considering everybody thought the Eagles were just the greatest show on turf for many, many, many weeks. Not myself included. I was on that bandwagon last year, but they have not looked the same this year, and they did not look good against the Cowboys. Jalen Hurts looked rattled. I don't think that he was 100% healthy, but that is no excuse. A.J. Brown dropped a lot of balls that he shouldn't have dropped. Devontae Smith is not a number one wide receiver. I don't know what the hell they're doing with DeAndre Swift, the running back. He seems to have been almost erased from the game plan. They're just not, that offense is not a well-oiled machine. And then Dak Prescott and the Cowboys offense absolutely pummeled the Eagles defense. They had no answers. So are the Eagles probably tired from all of these games back to back to back and having to do, they're playing hero ball every week? Yes. Do I think that the Eagles are going to be a major component in the playoffs? Yes. Do I think the Eagles are better than the Cowboys? It is quite the draw. But this week, the Cowboys in Dallas got the better of the Eagles. Props to Dallas. And those two teams will definitely be seeing each other again. The biggest takeaway from that game being the Eagles dropped to second in that division. If the Cowboys were to lose any other games, because I don't think the Eagles are going to lose again, then the Eagles will retake it. Otherwise, the boys win the division. The second to last game that I have circled on this list is going to be the Green Bay Packers versus the New York Giants. What a freaking game on Monday night. The Packers may have lost their playoff positioning courtesy of the Vikings winning 3-0 over the Raiders and them dropping to the Giants 24-22. The Giants could find themselves in the wild card somehow with Tommy DeVito leading them at quarterback. The Giants seem to have found this crazy spark under Tommy DeVito, and I am here for it. They showed his agent went viral before the game, Stellato, and he looks exactly like you would imagine a Tommy DeVito agent to look like. Dude looked like he still ran for the mob. That guy robs banks on the weekends. It's fantastic. It's good for football. It's super fun content to watch. And Tommy DeVito has all the heart in the world. They look great. Saquon Barkley scored a touchdown or two. And it looks like this Giants team is really rallying around Tommy DeVito at the end of this season. And he could potentially pull off an Eli Manning and come in through the wild card, beat a couple of teams in an NFC that's nowhere near as stacked with talent as the AFC, and possibly ruin some freaking bets for people because the Giants defense is sneaky good and their offense is playing a very consistent style of ball now under Tommy DeVito. Am I saying that they can beat the Juggernauts? I do not think that Tommy DeVito can beat the 49ers. I doubt that he can beat the Eagles. I don't think that he can beat the Cowboys. I do think the Giants could screw some things up for other teams. So we'll really get a chance to see what they are capable of. And on the flip side of that, with the Packers, Jordan Love looked absolutely awful. Romeo Doubs did not play very well. Jaron Reed's a stud. I think Jaron Reed's going to be a long-time starter for the Packers, or at least a player in the league that is good for whomever he may play for. Jaron Reed is a baller. He can run the ball. He can catch the ball. The dude can play some football. But that Packers defense needs work. The Packers offense needs Aaron Jones, maybe a different back. They need a primo number one wide receiver because Christian Watson's still hurt. He's been hurt on and off since he entered the league. And do I think Jordan Love ends up getting an extension when it comes to that time? Probably. I mean, he has played amicably well for the Packers this season. But against a Giants team that a lot of people really thought that Green Bay was going to wash right through, they looked really bad. So this game really could have cost them for postseason, but they also could have been playing for draft pick. We'll see, but this game's going to hurt for the Pack. And then last but not least, we have the Tennessee Titans versus the Miami Dolphins. And I hope everybody watched this game. If you're already following me on Twitter, you saw tons of tweets come out about this game. This was the game of the week. It was the most exciting game of the week by a pretty wide margin. You know, my roommate and quote-unquote co-host for this show, Joey, is a massive Dolphins fan, so I do nothing but talk shit to him every time the Dolphins come on the TV. This game was certainly no different, and boy, did this game get exciting fast. Will Levis came right out of the gates, threw a pick six to Zach Sealer, texted everybody that, you know, it's going to be a rough night for the Titans, you know, because there was just no reason for this game to not be rough for the Titans. And then Tua time kicked in, and the Dolphins there were a lot of things that happened that nobody could have expected to happen. You saw, you know, Connor Williams, the center for Miami, tears ACL, out for the season. You saw Xavier Rhodes, the safety, go down with an injury, not to come back. You saw Ty Hill hurt his ankle early in the game. It was the first quarter, I think, and their offense never looked the same without Tyreek Hill on the field. So that was my biggest takeaway from this game, is that if you take Ty Hill off the Dolphins offense, they cannot stretch the field. Their run game looked amazing. You know, Achane had 7 carries for 47 yards. Raheem Mostert had two touchdowns and 90-something yards. They looked really, really good on the ground, but Tua could not find the end zone, and that ended up being what determined the outcome of this game, was that the Dolphins could not score. They scored 2 really, really fast bang touchdowns there at the end of the game because of Titans miscues. You had Gurr, the rookie, decide to try and catch a punt that he had no business trying to catch. You saw Vrabes absolutely rip him a new one on the sideline afterwards. He muffs it. Miami gets it. Raheem Mostert touchdown a couple seconds later. And then you had I don't remember what the other one was. It may have been a fourth down conversion that went wrong. It could have been another turnover. I don't actually remember the second one, but irregardless, Miami gets the ball, boom, immediately scores. They have a 14-point lead with 3 seconds left to go. And then you saw what was the most amazing comeback out of Will Levis that you could have ever dreamed. DeAndre Hopkins is a bona fide stud, still over 30 years old. He looked amazing. He was gashing the Dolphins up and down the field. Derrick Henry turned on the Jets, got into the end zone. They ended up with a 2-point conversion, returned, scored again, won 28-27 over the giant Miami Dolphins, who were fighting for the first seed in the AFC overall. And now you have a lot of questions about what Miami is going to be capable of doing, because they are already down Teron Armstead, their left tackle. They're already down their guard, Robert Hunt. They were already down Jerome Baker. They were already down Javon Holland. They have all these stars that are on this team that aren't available, and now they're dropping games when they can't afford to drop games. The Bills are only a game behind them. This is going to shake out to be an interesting division here at the top of the AFC East. Because the Dolphins are reeling when they need not to be. Most of the teams that end up going far, the teams that are the most healthy. Miami is most certainly not that. So we'll see if Miami's going to be able to kind of turn things around a little bit and maybe change some scheme up, maybe get Tyreek Hill back healthy, which would be the greatest thing that they could do for their offense. And they need a couple of breaks on defense. Jerome Baker's on IR. He should be back in 2 or so weeks should he be healthy. They need their safeties. They need Jalen Ramsey to stay healthy. They need a spark that's really going to take them that next level. They don't have an incredibly difficult schedule to finish out the regular season. These last 4 games should be winnable, but anything can happen any given Sunday. This is the NFL. But outside of that, that's the main content of the show. Beyond that, we have a couple of things that have happened like around the league. Justin Herbert fractures his index finger. He got shut down for the rest of the season. I think that is definitely going to be the catalyst to the Brandon Staley firing, whether they keep Kellen Moore or not. I do think Brandon Staley gets fired. Justin Herbert's officially gone. Chargers are going to lose most of the rest of their games with Easton Stick at quarterback unless, something crazy happens. You have Geno Smith, who is injured. Drew Lock stepped in, played as well as he could have in place of Geno against the 49ers. They did put up 16 points, but you have to wonder what's going to end up happening with Seattle. Maybe they end up missing the playoffs altogether if Drew Lock has to play for an extended period of time. You have Josh Dobbs getting benched in Minnesota. It may be the end of, I saw this term coined earlier today, Dobbs sanity. And it's been an amazing story for Josh Dobbs, but it does look like he is going to take a back seat in Minnesota despite the 3-point dub that they got over the Raiders. You have a 3-way tie for the NFC South coming up between the Bucs, the Falcons, and the Saints. It's going to end up being the fight for the worst team in the NFC playoffs. You have Jake Browning for the Bengals actually telling people that he is very good at football, and it looks like he is going to earn quite the freaking contract once the season is up. He is a free agent, and I do hope Jake Browning lands with a team that's going to use him to the best of his abilities, because it has been awesome watching him fill in for Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. Just a side note, we also learned that Joe Burrow is a really good dude, and he donated his suite to Jake Browning's family and what have you so they could come watch him play. It was a really good-hearted move on Joe Burrow, who was on the sideline with an injury again. And it's just, it's going to be a crazy wrap up to the season in the NFL this year, I think. And it's going to lead into quite a remarkable offseason. I think there's going to be a lot of movement this offseason. I cannot wait to report on it as it starts happening. But it's been a really good year up to this point. We have 4 games left in the regular season before the postseason kicks off. And it's going to be an awesome postseason. I think it's going to be action-packed. There are a lot of good teams. There's a lot of parity around the NFL. There's like 6 teams that are 7-6 in the AFC. So you're going to have teams that, kind of like the Pittsburgh Steelers that might not be all that good, but they are right there in the thick of it. You have teams that are bad that are getting better actively, like the Titans, who just beat the Dolphins. You have young players that are coming out and they look like they're finally hitting a groove and they're learning this offense or this defense and that they're able to make plays. And it looks like teams are going to be that much better next season. So the product of the NFL is going to be very good moving forward. It's good every year, but it seems like the level of athleticism, the level of talent spread around the league grows every season. And if we could just get some consistent officiating, which that is a problem that is rampant around the NFL. The officiating has been very, very bad. There are so many rumors flying around that the bad officiating is, tied to the NFL filing their taxes as an entertainment company and not a professional sports avenue so that it can be secretly rigged. And, sometimes maybe it's scripted and things like that. Do I believe that the NFL is scripted? Probably not. It is fun to joke about, and it does make for an easy excuse when, good teams lose to bad teams for absolutely no reason. But the officiating is a problem. It is a glaring hole in the entire scheme of the NFL right now. And it is something that Commissioner Roger Goodell and the NFL as a whole should probably try and fix just a little bit, right? Like, you don't have to, jump through hoops and pay them millions of dollars and keep them on lock and things like that. You don't need a referee union within the NFL or anything crazy like that. But having guys whose side hobby is officiating is probably not the right look for the professional NFL sports ball league, just because it is a bad look when there are so many bad calls every week. But that wraps up today's show. This was always going to be a shorter show. Just because we are putting another show out here in a couple of days when we are in the beautiful state of Florida, in Miami, where all the partying happens. We will be at the Stadium Hotel right down the street from Hard Rock, and we will be at the Hard Rock Stadium on Sunday. I will be cheering on the Jets and Zach Wilson. Joey will be cheering on the Miami Dolphins and whatever set of scrubs they have playing. Just kidding. They'll have Tua and all the stars, and we'll both probably be cheering for the Dolphins. But it is going to be an awesome game because if the Jets manage to hand the Dolphins another unnecessary loss, that entire division will be in just absolute turmoil. The playoff seedings will get shaken up like nothing else, and it'll just add that much more chaos to what has already been a chaotic NFL season. And with that being said, I am signing off for the night. I am Jacob Meadows. Thank you all for tuning into my show this week. I hope you all have a terrific rest of your weeks, and I will see you again on Sunday. Out.